Hello, my friends. AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to my face and my card making space. And a video using some of the newest Altenew products from their June release, specifically this large floral, the Playful Florals, or Playful Flowers stamp and die set. Because anyone who knows me knows I like large florals. I'm going to use some of their tube watercolors, which I purchased month ago, 2 months ago, recently anyway. And I'm going to use three colors: magenta, neon yellow, and which one was this one? Dark cyan. Opera lemon, dark cyan, and quinacridone magenta. So basically pink, yellow, blue to get these colors. So super easy. Just fun. We're also going to do a little better pressing because you guys know I'm pulling out all the things, having loads of fun. Also, this card is part of an Instagram hop for this release, so I will have a link to that at the top of the description box, because if you don't follow me on Instagram, you should, because yeah, fun times. And then as always, I will have links to all the supplies I used in the description box below. My links are affiliate links. That just means that if you click on one of my links, end up placing an order, I get a little kickback from that at no extra cost to you. It's what helps pay the bills, all the things. And then, yeah, just keep watching and I will show you guys how I made this card. Alrighty, so to start off with, I am using Altenew's Cold Pressed Watercolor paper. I've used this before, just in the pre-cut A2 size. I used in like a live a couple months ago. You can get it in, smaller packs, and then there's this, what I call standard, like 9x12, and I'd purchased backups of this. It's nice watercolor paper. It has a bit more texture to it than my go-to Canson XL, and I'm going to show this as best I can because my camera started freaking out when I tried to zoom in on this. But yeah, this side has more texture. Camera started to freak out. But the other side is a little smoother, and I'm going to stamp on the smoother side. It's kind of personal preference, and honestly, I think either side would stamp just fine. But yeah, I cut the piece in half, and this stamp set has two large floral images, and of course I went with the bigger one. Just 'cause. And I'm going to heat emboss my image. You don't need to. You can just watercolor as is. I talk about this a lot. I like to heat emboss my images because the heat embossing creates a raised, outline, and it's like bumper pads. It keeps things a little more contained, and just I don't have to be so careful. It's a laziness thing. That's why I heat emboss. So I inked up the floral with Altenew's OBSIDIAN pigment ink and stamped it more than once to get all of that detail onto the watercolor paper. And then I coated it with clear embossing powder. And before I stamped, I had used my anti-static powder tool. That just helps the embossing powder to cling to anything, just the stamped image and not all over the paper. And then after I stamped it, clear embossing powder, and then melt with my heat tool till everything is just smooth and shiny and melted. It's just simple, really. And then once I've done that, I'm going to use my little tubes of watercolor here. So I'd started out when I had originally ordered, I ordered just the three that I mentioned, which I think I pronounced the dark cyan wrong. My brain was anyway, dark cyan, opera lemon, quinacridone magenta. And then I think Simon Says Stamp had a sale on Altenew products a month ago, whenever it was. And I picked up another couple tubes because again, do I need any of this? No. I have so many watercolors and so many tubes of watercolors, but new ones come out and I'm like, I'm curious. So anyway, these three. Honestly, if I was to recommend three to begin with, the only thing I would change is instead of getting the opera lemon, I would probably say get the permanent yellow. I think that's what it's called. I'll have a link to it next to this one. That one is just more of a normal yellow, because this one is neon. It still works. It's great. It's fun. But yeah, I need to get that other yellow and try this again, because I don't know what my brain was thinking when I ordered this one. I knew it was going to be this neon. but at the same time, I don't regret getting it because it's neon. It's fun. So, color theory. Those 3 colors. You mix the yellow and the blue together, you get green. It's simple, really. And then you can just vary how much you add, and you can get like infinite shades of green between that yellow and blue, really. And then you can also mute it down if you add the magenta. I didn't do that here. We're keeping this simple. We're not going to go completely nuts on mixing colors. So I just squeezed out a teeny little bit onto just my little go-to plastic palette that's getting stained to all heck, and that's fine. You can also squeeze out 2 watercolors like this into like an actual palette, let them fully dry, and then just reactivate them with a wet paintbrush. I have watercolors I've done that with. That works great. It's all kind of, again, just personal preference. You can also let all of this that's on the palette dry and then reactivate it later with water. You know, swirl your brush in it. It works too. So the sky's kind of the limit here. And then the other thing I'm doing is using 2 brushes. I'm using one brush to pick up the watercolor and to do like the mixing. And that's what I apply it with. And then my second brush is one that just has water on it. And that's I pull the color out so I get that variation from kind of darker to lighter. And then off camera to the side, I just have a cloth. You can have paper towel or a cloth. And I just use that to like wipe the clean brush off in between, and also when there's too much water in it, just to kind of soak up some of the extra. So after I did the greenery, you mix pink and yellow together, you get orange. And same thing, depending on how much you add, you can get a ton of different shades of orange. So I mixed up a bit of orange, and I used that for these little flower centers here. And same thing, using the brush that I mixed it with to apply the color, and then the clean brush to kind of pull the color out. And then this is where, these 2 colors, the Quinacridone Magenta and Dark Cyan mixed together, that purple shade, life, love. Because when you mix pink and blue together, you get purple. And this ended up like, I wasn't even going to paint purple for these. Honestly though, I don't even know what my thought process was in terms of specific like colors for these florals. Like, I was just having fun with it. But when I mixed that purple together, I was like, well, this floral needs to be purple, obviously, because it's beautiful. Like, look at it. So same thing. I used the brush that I'd mixed the colors together to apply, and then pulled out the color with the clean brush. So applying the color to, same idea as with the leaves. And like, I applied the watercolor, you know, at the base of each leaf, and then pulled it out. I'm doing the same thing with the florals, kind of applying the color towards the base of each petal and then pulling it out, and just keeping it simple. And then for the like pink shade, I added a bit. I didn't realize I was like off screen when I did it, but I just kind of swirled it with a bit of the purple, just cause. Yeah, just because. And then same thing, applied it with the watercolor brush, and then used the other watercolor brush to pull it out. These brushes are an Altenew pack. Same thing. I purchased these. I think I showed them in my haul video a few months ago, and I think I used them. You guys, I post so much content. I'm to the point now. I'm like, I have no idea. I remember showing them. Probably in that haul. I just can't remember if I've actually shown them like in videos. But anyway, I like them so far. But I've shown many brushes. There's so many options out there. This is a good little set. I've been pleased so far with them. So then for the final florals, I just kind of toned down the Dark Cyan. I just with, again, what was kind of on the palette, added a bit of that magenta that was sitting right there. So it ended up making it more closer to a true blue. So, like I was saying, those 3 colors, you've got the entire rainbow at your fingertips. So, I just had my fun painting, and I kept it simple. I didn't go back and add any more layers or anything. I was just happy with how this turned out. I'm kind of glad I didn't do like super extra, because I messed up with the die cutting. That was brilliant of me. So, I had the coordinating wafer die, and I taped it into place. Everything was fine, but when I flipped it over onto my magnetic plate before running it through my die cut machine, I just, in the back of my mind for a brief second, I knew things had shifted, but I still ran it through the machine. So it ended up being off, and on the right hand side there, it cut off part of the image, and I was so annoyed, but I was like, I'm still going with this. I'm going to work with it. So I changed my card plan because I was originally going to do like a horizontal card to like include the whole floral. I changed my whole plan, and instead I pulled out the this press plate. This is the Essential Textures Rustic Burlap press plate. This came out a month or two ago, I think. I can't remember. And I've had it sitting here along with all the other press plates I've been buying because I'm just collecting them like a crazy person. Anywho, so I have my Better Press system from Spellbinders. I put that press plate onto it. I still have some residue, like sticky residue on that clear plate. That's just, I've shown this in other videos, and at the end of this video, I'll link to my playlist of the few videos I've done so far using the Better Press. But there was adhesive on there, so I stuck another piece of that Altenew watercolor paper to the clear plate, and then I'm inking up the press plate with one of Altenew's fresh dye inks. This is just the Arctic color, just a light blue. I'm finding their fresh dye inks ink up really nice, like ink up the press plates really nicely, and I've shown that in other videos. And then I ran this through my Platinum 6 die cut machine. So this presses in, and you can't see it, sadly, you can't see it in video, you can't see it in photos, but the texture, that letterpress texture, oh, I love it. I love it. Like I have a card in front of me, and it's just, I always tell everyone, don't lick the artwork, but it's hard not to like rub your fingers on that just letterpress texture. So since I just used a fresh dye ink to do the better pressing, I just cleaned the plate off with a baby wipe because I didn't use like the, Better Press ink, anything like that. So it was good to go. And then for my sentiment, I used one of the die cut sentiments that comes in the coordinating wafer die set. And I was using the black diamond glitter paper that's in the Milky Way glitter cardstock set. And I've been using Altenew's glitter cardstock since they first released it, whenever it was, years ago. I hoard this stuff like the magpie that I am, but I do use it. And then I buy backups just in case, but I use it mostly for things like little sentiments and stuff because it's just, it doesn't shed. That's the thing too. It doesn't shed. Any of the glitter cardstocks I use in my videos, they don't shed or anything like that. So it's a nice way to incorporate glitter without having to deal with the herpes of the craft world. Because anyone knows, loose glitter it gets everywhere. I don't mind working with it, but I know some people absolutely hate it. So glitter cardstock like that is a nice way to incorporate it without having to deal with loose glitter. So I trimmed down that pressed background with my paper trimmer, so it was slightly smaller than what my A2 card will be. So I trimmed it down to like 4 by 5.25. And then I'm going to adhere my floral. I dithered for a minute because I thought about like popping it up with like foam dimension, but instead I decided to just adhere it directly to the background with liquid glue. So once I get this adhered into place, I'm going to flip the background over and just trim off the excess with my scissors. And if I hadn't like fully messed that up, my card would have been different. But if I hadn't messed up the die cutting, I would have probably used that piece and like stuck it to the inside of my card. But instead I'm going to stamp on the inside of the card. So it's all good. So I trimmed that off, and then I needed something to kind of ground the sentiment. The sentiment was just there, just kind of floating, and I didn't like that. So I took some black cardstock and I just trimmed off 2 little strips, just eyeballed it, trimmed off 2 little strips with my paper trimmer. And then I'm just going to adhere these directly on top of this card front with liquid glue. And then same thing, once I've got these adhered into place, I'm going to flip this over and just trim off the bits that are hanging off either side with my scissors. And then I can adhere the sentiment like right above that, and it just kind of grounds the sentiment. So got those into place, flipped it over, trimmed off the little pieces on either side, and then adhered the sentiment into place. And then after I adhered the sentiment, usually I do this beforehand, but again, I was working on the fly. I decided this card needed some splatter. So I pulled out my splat box and I pulled out my monster tube. This I also showed in that haul video like a couple months ago of Altenew's carbon black gouache. This tube's enormous. It's enormous. Like it's ridiculous, but I love it. And this stuff too, just FYI, specifically this carbon black gouache, it is unbelievably pigmented. It will also like kind of stain everything if you're not careful. So just be aware. But again, love it. So stuck a little bit of that on my palette, added just a little bit of water, and then used my little fan brush and added some splatter to this. And then just gotta let that dry, which didn't take very long. And then for the inside of my card is going to be a top folding A2 white note card. So I line that up in my stamp positioner, and then I'm going to line up the stamp in about the same way I have it on the front of the card. So that's why I've got the card base kind of over off to the left side of my Misty here. And then I'm inking the stamp up with that same Arctic blue ink that I used for the Letterpress. And I'm going to stamp that onto the inside of the card. And then once I've got that stamped into place, I'm going to stamp a sentiment from that Playful Flowers stamp set. There's a bunch of like sentiments and like phrases and whatnot, which I really liked. And I just chose a simple little sending hugs one and lined that up. And I'm just going to stamp that with black ink onto the inside of the card. So get that stamped into place. I'm going to ink that up and stamp it a couple times there. And then to adhere my card front to the card base, I'm going to pop this up with some foam tape. So give it a little bit of extra dimension that way, since I didn't pop the florals up with any dimension. So put the foam tape on the back, peeled off the backing, then pop this onto the card front. And then once that's in place, I decided to add just a few little enamel dots. I've got the Northern Shore enamel dots and the basic black and white, essential black and white ones. And I just peeled those off with my little like die pick, pressed them into place, and that finished off this card. So like I mentioned in the intro, I will have links to all the things in the description box below the video. And then I will also, like I said, link to that other yellow shade of the watercolor tubes that if anyone was interested, I would recommend that over the neon yellow. But if you want to live a little dangerously, get the neon yellow. It is fun. There's nothing wrong with neon. I do love it. So anyway, I'll have links to all the things in the description box below for anyone who is interested. Thank you all so much for taking the time to watch my videos, for thumbs upping, commenting. I very much appreciate it. It does help. Subscribe if you haven't. I'd love to have you. And I'll see you all very soon in the next one. Bye.